Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jen and I'm that props girl. Today we're going to be doing something that I cannot believe we have never done on my channel before. I'm going to be walking you through the process of how to make aged paper. This is a really handy thing to know how to do. I learned how to do this when I was 9 years old in primary school. And if 9-year-old me can do it, then absolutely anybody can. I'm going to be walking you through 3 different methods that you can use to age paper yourself, and I'll also be showing you some little cheat hacks that you can do if you don't want to do this work but you still want to get a great result. So if that seems like something that you are interested in, then stick around. Be sure to smash that like button because it lets me know you want to see content like this, as well as consider hitting that subscribe button and bell because it helps me to grow here on the platform. And with all that said and done, let's jump into today's tutorial. Have you ever picked up an old book and realized that the pages are yellowing? That's a process called oxidization. That's what happens to paper when it is exposed to the elements for a long time. And so that's why sometimes old books are kept in plastic sleeves. It is to protect the books from exposure to the air, because the air we breathe has a lot of different toxins in it. And if you leave paper out long enough, it gets exposed to moisture, it gets exposed to oxygen, it gets exposed to a lot of different things, and it will change color. That's just what happens naturally. And so when we're looking to age paper, we're looking to take a piece of paper that is usually typically white and make it more of a brownish tinge. Now, where your tinge of brown/yellow goes on that scale is completely up to you. The 3 methods that you can use to easily age paper include tea, coffee, and watercolor paints. There are also other methods as well that include burning and crumpling. I will be going through that as well, but we're going to start first with our tea method. Now, if you're doing a tea soak, the first thing you're going to need is tea bags. Now, you can't just use any old tea. I like to go with a breakfast tea, so your Earl Greys or your English breakfast teas, because they have that classic brown color, and that's what you want. If you're wanting more of a yellowing, I would suggest potentially either using a cream colored paper that you can easily buy from any stationery store, which I've done before when I made my really long scroll. I will link that video. It's actually a vlog, but I will link the video that's in down below. It was really, really effective to make it look old, but without having to go through this process. If you're wanting to do a slightly more yellow look, you could either weaken the tea that you use, or you could use maybe a herbal tea like a green tea. But we're not going to be doing that today. We're going to be sticking to a traditional English breakfast tea and an Earl Grey because they give us those really nice brown colors. All right, so method number 1 today, I've just got a cup here, which is 2 cups worth, and I've got 3 tea bags in here. Now, I'm using Earl Grey today, as I said before, but you can use whatever you like. And I'm going to just brew up a cup of tea. Now, I'm using 3 tea bags because that's kind of like a starting point that I'm going off, but depending on how brown you want it to be will depend on how much tea, obviously, you use. You do not have to brew 2 cups. That's just what I'm doing. So I'm gonna let that go for a little minute. Obviously, like when you're making regular tea, the longer you leave the tea bag in, the browner it will get. That's the thing. I'm brewing a fairly strong tea. Oh, whoops. Brewing a fairly strong tea currently. Okay, I'm just gonna take the tea bags out. And pop them over here. Now I've got just a normal baking dish prepared here, and we're just going to pour this tea into that. I've kept a little bit in that cup just in case I want to pour some over the top. Now I'm going to take my regular A4 piece of paper. I'm going to just gently submerge it. Now, it's not an exact fit for this dish, and that's actually okay. Now, if you're worried about burning yourself on the hot water, you can also use some tongs as well to submerge it in. I'm just going to press that down into the water. Now, you can see that the water is sort of getting trapped by the paper there. That's why I saved a little bit here so that we can just pour that over the top. You can also start with the paper in the dish as well. It's up to you. You just want to sort of soak it a couple of times, like so. Now, This would obviously work better if you had a bigger dish. I just didn't. You could also do this in like a container, like a storage container or something like that. Now you can do that a couple of times. The trick is to not make it too wet. Otherwise the paper will start to fall apart. So in that instance, the quality of paper is also important. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. I don't know if you can see there, but it has changed color. Now I'm going to set that aside and we're going to let that dry. I normally just sit them on a towel so that it can absorb some of that moisture. Now, while we've still got this tea, I wanted to show you another method that you can use, and I'm just going to do it on this little mat here. Now, you can brew tea and use your tea bags to do the same effect. So I'm going to take our piece of paper, I'm going to pop that down, doesn't matter that there's a little bit of wet on it already. We're going to take our tea bag, however many you use. Okay, I guess we're using two, these two are stuck together. I'm going to squeeze out the excess tea, and we're just going to dab it like so onto the paper. This method is very effective as well. So it's another great option for you, and as you can see, the paper, it doesn't show up as well on camera, but the paper is slowly changing color and you're using it almost like a sponge. Just sort of driving that across the paper, and it gives it a really nice weathered look. While we're waiting for that piece of paper to dry, we're going to move on to our coffee method. You can use instant coffee if you like. You could also use espresso if you have an espresso machine. But if you don't want to use either of those options, I personally like to use a coffee plunger. Now, if you don't know how to use a coffee plunger, I'm going to do a little really fast tutorial on that right now because I kind of feel like a coffee anyway. But if you already know how to make coffee, or you are going to use instant or your own method, totally fine. Feel free to skip ahead. I'll put the time code in down here so you can see where you need to jump ahead to. Alrighty, so when it comes to making plunged coffee, you will need a plunger. This is my one. This is a 1 litre plunger and it is from Kmart Australia. I really liked the glass design on this, but honestly you can do this with any plunger. I'm just going to take a heat-proof mat and pop that one there. Since this is a 1 litre plunger, I need 60 grams of coffee. So I've got my scales here, and hopefully yours are a little bit nicer than mine. So I'm just going to tare that one. I've got my coffee here. I'm going to pop that into the plunger. Now usually this makes about 3 cups of coffee. All right, we're going to take that off our scale, but we are going to keep this spoon. Okie dokie, so we're going to just level that one out, and now what we're going to do is we are going to pour a fresh kettle of coffee into that plunger. Now we want to make sure that we're trying to cover majority of the coffee that's in there. Like so. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to set timer for 4 minutes, and we're going to let that sit. Now the reason we have to let it sit is because the coffee is brewing. Now using a French press can take a bit of time, but it is honestly worth it in the end. Alrighty, it has been 4 minutes. Now it is time to do a bit of a stir here. Now basically all of the coffee is sitting at the top, which is lovely, and it's a big thick layer. Now we're just stirring that through very quickly like that, and you see that it's got all nice and foamy. And now we're going to set timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to let that sit for another 5 minutes. Now we're at a further 5 minutes, and now what we're going to do is you can see there's all this foam at the top here, and we're basically just going to take all of that off as gently as we can, and I just pop it in a mug. This can take a little bit of time, like as coffees go, like sure, it's not the fastest method of making coffee, but if you are trying to save money and you work from home, it's a great option if you don't want to buy like an espresso machine or something like that. I really have been enjoying having my French press coffee, and it's been a fantastic way to save money, because basically the cost of one coffee is the cost of a bag of ground coffee. So that is a win-win in my opinion. So basically within that last 5 minutes, most of the sediment of the coffee should have sunk to the bottom. All right, that is a lot of it gone now. So now that's done, move that out of the way, and we are ready to plunge. So we pop our plunger in here. Now it is very important that you do this slowly. So we're going to slowly press that down, and basically this is a filter and it's pushing the sediment down to the bottom. You want to try and not land it on the pile of coffee which is at the bottom as well. It's just there, which you probably can't see, but we're gonna land it just up there. We go. Okay, now that's ready to pour. So I already have my milk and vanilla syrup and ice ready for my iced latte in my unseasonable Christmas glass, but I'm gonna just pour that in there. And there you go, a really simple way to make an iced latte at home. And it tastes wonderful. Oh, so good. That is how you make coffee. Here is actually some that I prepared earlier. Now I'm just gonna take that off and pour that into our pre-prepared tray. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but this is actually a little bit darker than the tea was. So we're going to use that exact same method again of submerging the paper. You can see that it is just that little bit darker, so the stain is a little bit more obvious than it was with the tea. Now this is almost like, as I said, it's kind of like painting, because you're just sort of like working the water around the paper to make sure that every inch is covered. And as I said, this can be a bit messy, so if you want to skip the messiness, you can just buy these. Now, depending on how dark you'd like it, will depend on how long you let it sit, but we're gonna go let that one dry. Our final method that I'm going to walk you through today is with watercolor paints. Now, one of my most popular videos still today is how I made my fake newspapers. Now, in that video, I said once I printed off the newspapers that I created, in order to age them and make them look like they are real newspaper and not white, I used a very light gray watercolor paint wash. We're going to be doing the exact same thing today, except I'm not using grey, but we're just going to do a very light watercolor wash. These are just very cheap ones that you can buy, and we're going to be using this brown one. I think this is actually what I used for the newspaper. This was white, and I think I mixed it with the black to create that sort of color. So basically what we're going to do, very, very simple, same method. I'm going to take our paper, pop it on something that we don't care if it gets wet. Use our brush, get our paint, and we're just going to work that onto the paper, like so. Now this is coming up a bit yellow, and that's fine. You can use whatever color you want. That's the good thing about watercolor, is you can also make colors really easily. So if you don't like this color, then it's very, very simple to go and create a new one. But this is giving us a beautiful sandy parchment color, which is very, very nice. Now, if you wanted it to not be so brushed on, you could just use a sponge. Now, if any of my followers are watercolor artists, please do not judge my poor painting technique. Okay, so that's created a really nice parchment style color, and just like the other ones, I'm going to let that sit to dry. Okay, so you've seen all three of those methods. There are still a few more options that you've got up your sleeve. Now, with some of these options, you can continue the process. You can burn the corners very, very lightly with either a lighter or a match. And what that does is it makes it look really, really old, like it's been on a pirate ship or it's been, you know, exposed to candles or whatnot. So that's a really effective method, but please be careful because I'm telling you, it can get away from you really, really easily. So make sure you're only doing a tiny little corner at a time and that you have got water on standby just in case this gets out of hand. Another option you can do is crumpling. If you crumple a piece of paper multiple times, it will firstly shrink, but it will look like it's gone through the wars and it will naturally look older. You can crumple paper and then do the submerge method like we did with the tea or the coffee, but please know that the tea and coffee is going to stay in those creases. And if that's the vibe that you're looking for, fantastic. You could also crinkle it after you've done the submersion as well. That's another option there. But I hear you saying, Jen, what if I need it to have print on it? What if I need it to have text on it? That's also fine too. So you have a number of options that you can use. You could print just words on paper in a Word document in whatever font you like, and then do any of these methods. That works quite well, although I would wait for the ink to properly dry first. Second of all, you could handwrite them, but if you're going to do that, do not use a felt tip pen because that will run in the water. You should look at doing something maybe with a ballpoint pen. And your third method would be if you aged it first and then wrote on it afterwards. So options for that would be potentially using a Cricut machine, doing calligraphy yourself, or getting someone else to do that for you. That's just a few methods that you can use to make the paper look old. If you're not interested in doing all the hard work when it comes to submerging paper, and if you've got a lot to do, I get it. It's time consuming and it's not always fun. You can actually buy aged paper from Amazon. It comes in a pack. You can feed it into a printer and you can print on it or you can write on it, and it has the exact same effect. It's already done. It's got the beautiful coloring in it. And I'm going to pop a link down below if you would like to look at it or buy it yourself. It is an affiliate link though, so I will get a commission on the sale. It's up to you whether you wish to go through my commission link. You can also just type aged paper into Amazon and it'll come up that way. But that is all, you guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought and if you've ever done this before, or if you have another method of aging paper. I love learning and I would love to hear from you guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video because it lets me know you want to see content like this. And as always, consider hitting that subscribe button and bell as it does help me to grow on this platform. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.